Tonight, crowded chaos, a deadly shooting at the Super Bowl parade in Kansas City. The sudden hail of bullets as thousands ran to safety.
Everybody started running. There was screaming.
More than 20 people wounded, including children.
It's dumping after dumping.
No rest or relief. The East Coast pummeled with snow again. Also, rideshare drivers parked in protest over low wages. Plus, the Manitoba deaths, a mother's grief and anger over the killing of her teenage daughter.
There's rage in my chest.
And a royal return to Canada.
I'm feeling happy.
Harry and Meghan mark Valentine's Day with a cause close to their hearts.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. A jubilant celebration for this year's Super Bowl champion turned into a chilling and terrifying crime scene today. Up to 1 million people had been expected to line the streets in Kansas City to cheer on the Chiefs' win. Then, towards the end of the victory parade, this.
We have shots fired on the west side.
Local radio DJ Lisa Lopez is confirmed dead and more than 20 injured, including multiple children. Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes posting his prayers for Kansas City. And in a statement, the team saying it was truly saddened by the senseless act of violence. CTV's Joy Malbin starts us off with the party that turned deadly.
Kansas City, let me hear you. Minutes after the Kansas City champions vowed to go for a third straight Super Bowl, wrapping up a massive celebration with tens of thousands of people in the crowd, shots rang out, sending thousands of panicked fans running for their lives.
Everybody started running. There was screaming. We didn't know what was happening, but this day and age, when people run, you run.
Boom, 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 boom. I heard about 5, 6 shots go off. I thought they were fireworks. It was chaos all at the end. It was a great parade with a crazy ending.
Panicked fans were stunned. The festivities were pretty much over when the shooting happened near the city's Union Station. First responders pulling gunshot victims onto stretchers and rushing them to hospital.
The girl next to me, where my daughter was standing with her husband, was shot in the mouth. Our children witnessed it. She was on the ground, bleeding from her mouth.
The police chief confirming at least one person is dead and more than 22 injured, including children.
I'm angry at what happened today. The people who came to this celebration should expect a safe environment. We had over 800 law enforcement officers. Because of bad actors, which were very few, this tragedy occurred.
3 people were taken into custody for questioning. One of them may have been tackled by a fan. The shooting is believed to be criminal in nature and not terrorism. Kansas City has struggled with violent crime, frustrating the mayor, who attended with his family and was also forced to run.
I'm heartbroken. I don't want us to have to, in our country, for every big event, think about a concern of being shot. Parades, rallies, schools, movies, it seems like almost nothing is safe.
A tough day in Kansas City and another tough day for America. This is the 49th mass shooting in the U.S., according to the Gun Violence Archive. And Omar, it's only February.
Frightening moments. All right, Joy, thank you so much. And in Texas, police are still trying to piece together what led to the violent crash at a hospital. This was the scene at an emergency room late yesterday when a sedan pummeled through its entrance.
It felt like I was watching a movie. I see a car embedded into the ER lobby area.
The 57-year-old driver was pulled out and given CPR, but she died at the scene. 5 others, including 2 children, were injured.
We had 3 team members. They put their life in harm's way and stopped the car from running.
Police believe the crash was not intentional, adding the driver did not appear to suffer a medical episode. There was little love for the weather in Atlantic Canada this Valentine's Day, which got pummeled again by another fierce storm. And as CTV's Sarah Plowman reports, there's even more snow in the forecast.
The nor'easter blew into Newfoundland after clipping Nova Scotia's coast, coating roads and driveways.
If I do it all, it'll be at least a couple of hours.
Tonight, a storm surge warning for parts of eastern Newfoundland. In Brigus today, a high tide already led to overland flooding. It's the same system that drivers struggle to navigate in the U.S. Northeast and Nova Scotia.
This is crazy, eh? My car is stuck now.
The blizzard brought more than 20 centimeters to parts of Cape Breton, to add to the 150 centimeters from less than 2 weeks ago.
It almost seems cruel, doesn't it?
It is cruel.
One challenge Sydney faces is what to do with it all.
Yeah, so we're actually running out of places to put the snow. We did receive federal approval earlier in the week to put snow in the Sydney Harbour, which has helped with snow removal, especially in the downtown area.
In Halifax, people woke up to a post-storm symphony of blowers, wipers, and shovelers.
I think what's different about this winter is that we're getting all of our winter in essentially 2 weekends.
But it's all in perspective.
That's fabulous. I'm glad I'm not in Cape Breton, though.
Across the areas hit, schools were closed. Valentine's Day deliveries kept going.
Knowing that the storm was coming, we tried to reschedule as many deliveries as we could.
Students hit the hills to make the most of a snow day.
It's like not hard. It's not like ice.
Yeah.
It's like powder.
While the storm has passed here in Halifax, in Newfoundland and Labrador, it's not done yet. The east and northeast part of that province could get up to 60 centimeters by early Friday. Omar.
All right, Sarah, thank you. For the first time since the heartbreaking murders in Manitoba that killed 5 people, we're hearing tonight from the mother of one of the teenaged victims. Here's CTV's Denton Unger.
No one listened. No one listened.
It's a thought that races through Juliet Hastings' mind as she looks at pictures of her oldest daughter, Maya Lee Gratton.
Maya, she could do anything, and her heart is so pure and so big.
The 17-year-old girl was one of the 5 people killed in Carman on Sunday, her body found in the home she had been placed into by Winnipeg Child and Family Services.
It could have been all avoided. And that's what gets me.
Hastings says about 10 months ago, Maya Lee requested CFS place her in the home with Amanda Clearwater, one of the 5 victims who, though not related by blood, she called Auntie Mandy. This despite calls from Hastings, who says she told her CFS worker many times she feared the home was not safe. She says Ryan Manakisik, Amanda's common-law partner, and the man charged in the killings, had mental health issues resulting in violent episodes.
Throw things, he would yell, he would punch the walls. He's hurt members in the family there.
But Hastings says those concerns were ignored.
You didn't listen to me now, and my baby is dead.
CTV News reached out to the province, which runs the CFS agency, and was told in a statement, as a matter of practice, the department does not comment on any interactions within CFS, and it would be very inappropriate to comment on anything in the middle of a multiple murder investigation. Families Minister Nahani Fontaine says generally, any death of a child in CFS care will prompt a review by Manitoba's Advocate for Children and Youth.
Our government is more than prepared to look at whether or not those reviews say that there needs to be even more stringent criteria or requirements for foster care placements.
But Manitoba's Child Advocate says the province needs to do more.
We need government's action to act immediately to ensure that we don't lose more children, young lives.
Actions Hastings wishes were taken sooner, as she believes it would have saved her daughter's life.
And there's rage in my chest, and it's choking me out. Saying, Julie, you need to do more. This is not right.
Danton Unger, CTV News, Winnipeg.
A key component of the Liberals' climate policy is getting a rebrand. The quarterly payments to offset the cost of carbon will now be known as the Canada Carbon Rebate, a move critics are calling an attempt to reframe a government with slumping support. Here's CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver.
Down in the polls and under pressure to scrap the carbon tax, the Liberals today rebranded the rebate portion of their program, hoping to get more Canadians on board.
The previous name was a bit difficult to understand and even for many people to remember. So this will likely make it easier.
The Climate Action Incentive Payments has been renamed the Canada Carbon Rebate. It delivers money to Canadians quarterly. This year, Ottawa says the average family of 4 will receive anywhere from $760 in New Brunswick to a high of $1,800 in Alberta.
And we need people to understand that when we talk about axe the tax, we are talking about axe the rebate. And people are relying on that rebate.
That rebate is based off the carbon tax on fossil fuels, which the PBO estimates will bring in $11.8 billion this year. And because the carbon tax itself is going up on April 1st, the amount Canadians are set to get is also going up.
Canadians aren't fools. I don't think they're going to fall for it. And it's, and I guess the question I would have for them is how much did you spend on the marketing campaign for this rebrand? Because that money also could be better spent, put in Canadians' pockets.
The government rejects any claims that the rebrand is a response to repeated Conservative attacks, though some analysts disagree.
Well, this is an exercise in damage control for the Trudeau Liberals. The reality is that many Canadians are upset about the carbon tax program that they've instituted.
The Environment Minister's office says they are unaware of any costs associated with this change and say no third-party firm, Omar, was brought in to help.
All right, Annie, thank you. And the climate activist turned environment minister facing backlash from the opposition and some premiers for saying Ottawa won't fund new roads tried to clarify his comments today.
I should have been more specific in that conference that I gave last week in Montreal. I was referring specifically to projects like the Troisième Lien. But in that same conference, I specified that we still have funds, obviously, to maintain and enhance our road network.
Stephen Guilbeault says he meant projects looking to enlarge road networks won't get federal money. And Donald Trump's comments criticizing spending commitments from NATO members drew sharp condemnation from the head of the military alliance today, who said Trump was undermining security. Here's CTV's Heather Wright.
Russia launched several missile attacks overnight, hitting a hospital in eastern Ukraine, killing 3 people, including a child. With the 2-year anniversary of Russia's invasion approaching, Canada has pledged $60 million for Ukraine's F-16 aircrafts, an announcement made by Defense Minister Bill Blair ahead of NATO meetings this week in Brussels.
These funds will help to secure and source much-needed F-16 equipment and supplies, such as spare parts, weapon stations, avionic components, and ammunition.
Ukraine is not a part of NATO, but since Russia's invasion, defense spending by member countries has risen sharply, up by 11% in 2023. 18 of 31 countries are expected to hit the 2% GDP target this year, but Canada is not among them, with a defense spend of an estimated 1.38% of GDP.
If we want to be taken seriously, if we want our voice to be taken seriously, we need to look at investing in defense.
Which countries are hitting their spending targets and which aren't are in focus right now after former U.S. President Donald Trump said he wouldn't protect a NATO member that hadn't paid their bills, drawing the ire of many, including NATO Secretary General.
Any suggestion that we are not standing up for each other, that we are not going to protect each other, that does undermine the security of all of us.
If Canada were to hit that 2% target, defense spending would need to increase by roughly $15 billion every year. Omar.
All right, Heather, thank you. A top Republican has issued a cryptic warning about what he says is a serious national security threat that reportedly has to do with Russia's capabilities in space. The highly unusual public message coming from the chair of the U.S. House Intelligence Committee, urging President Biden to declassify details so that Congress, the administration, and allies can openly discuss the actions necessary to respond to this threat. The Prime Ministers of Canada, Australia, and New Zealand issued a joint statement this evening warning that Israel's planned military operation in Rafah would be, quote, catastrophic because there's simply nowhere else for civilians to go. The comments come after a visit to Ottawa by the King of Jordan. The crisis in the Middle East, top of the agenda. Here's CTV's Judy Trin.
Question period disrupted less than 5 minutes after it began. Protesters were taken away in handcuffs.
And I
our country is not only complicit, but aiding in the genocide.
Other demonstrators remained on Parliament Hill as the King of Jordan arrived to meet with the Prime Minister.
We need to see the release of hostages. We need to see a sustainable ceasefire.
How do we solve this problem once and for all, giving Palestinians a sense of a future?
For now, that future is dangerously unstable. Israel launching new airstrikes at Lebanon, killing 4 people. The strikes were retaliation for rocket fire that killed a soldier. Meanwhile, freed captives and their families are seeking justice against Hamas at the International Criminal Court, helped by a team of Canadian lawyers who have filed more than 1,000 pages of analysis. Israelis want the militants charged with war crimes.
The Hamas people, they hurt us. They murder us. They kidnap us. They raped us.
The Israeli military released video today purportedly showing Yahya Sinwar, the mastermind of the October 7th attacks, hiding in tunnels underneath southern Gaza. Sounds of gunfire were heard as hundreds of Palestinians fled Nasser Hospital after being warned that troops were going in to hunt Hamas. All of this telegraphing Benjamin Netanyahu's intentions for a ground invasion in Rafah, the last declared safe zone in southern Gaza, where 1.4 million displaced people are seeking refuge.
Netanyahu says before a military operation begins in Rafah, civilians will be allowed to leave. But Gaza's border with Egypt is closed to Palestinians, and the United Nations says most of the enclave is uninhabitable. Omar.
All right, Judy, thank you. Coming up, striking in solidarity.
Workers are starting to rise up.
Rideshare drivers rallying for better pay. Plus, a royal cause in BC for Prince Harry and Meghan. Canadian January home sales jumped 22% compared to a year ago, the largest year-over-year gain in nearly 3 years. Sales were up nearly 4% in January compared to the month before, and so were prices, increasing by nearly 8% in January compared to a year earlier. Also going up, frustration and anger according to gig workers. Drivers for rideshare platforms and food delivery services organized protests across North America today to demand better pay. Here's CTV's Adrian Gobriel.
Frustrations shift into overdrive.
We are sick of working 80 hours per week.
Dubbed a global day of action, gig workers across the USA and Canada delivered their demands loud and clear.
It comes down to wages because we're not making them. Not a fair wage.
In Toronto, if someone takes a $50 trip with UberX, $12.50 automatically goes to Uber. The technology company then charges drivers additional booking, regulatory, and airport fees. That doesn't include gas, vehicle maintenance, and other expenses.
How difficult is it to make a living driving for a rideshare company?
So I worked 80 hours a week. My best gross was $1,800 before expenses.
Rideshare associations say they want their members to be paid a base minimum wage when they don't have a passenger or delivery on board, though companies say that won't work because some drivers often double dip with Uber and Lyft while working.
One of the reasons why most workers work on multiple apps is because we have to. There's not enough income or orders or rides for a single app.
Just as today's job action was taking place, Uber sent out this questionnaire to drivers, asking how they'd feel if the number of rideshare vehicles allowed on the road was capped by the company.
Across Canada, Uber says despite the headlines today, they saw no disruption to their operations. Omar.
All right, Adrian, thank you. Still ahead.
I went home and I said to my mother, I seen a man I would like to marry.
The secret to 74 Valentine's Days together. Well, love is in the air and in the mail in the Colorado town of Loveland. Every year, thousands of romantics send their letters to the so-called Sweetheart City just to get a coveted Loveland postmark.
We serve 110 different countries and 50 different states.
The tradition began nearly 80 years ago, and at one time, the town processed more than 300,000 pieces of mail a year. But the times have changed, and so have expressions of love. With email and social media, that number is now half what it once was. And for about as long as those letters have been coming into Loveland, Irene and Joe Laporte have been husband and wife.
From the first time I seen him, I went home and I said to my mother, I seen a man I would like to marry.
And they did.
That's our wedding.
They've been married for more than 7 decades. Today, they celebrated their 74th Valentine's Day together. The couple have been living together at a long-term care home in London, Ontario. So what's their secret?
You have to show that you love people and be kind all the time. I love you, honey.
The longtime Lovebirds plan to celebrate their 75th wedding anniversary this summer. What a lovely couple. Congratulations. After the break, Harry and Meghan back in Canada. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex made a Valentine's Day appearance high above Metro Vancouver as the countdown for the Invictus Games kicks off. The story from our new BC Bureau Chief, Andrew Johnson.
A prince getting a few pointers from the pros. After he quipped, "What could possibly go wrong?" Harry's first run down the hill on adaptive skis earns the applause of Invictus Games competitors and his wife. The Duke of Sussex isn't the only one at Whistler today trying this for the first time. He's joined by wounded warriors from about 20 countries, learning winter adaptive sports on the spot.
One of the things that's great about Invictus is that we don't choose our athletes necessarily by whether or not they'll win gold, but how much they'll benefit from the therapy.
People like Rosa Sanchez Bermudez from Colombia, who was paralyzed by a gunshot wound serving her country.
I don't feel my legs, but here, just having the arms, I feel that I can walk again.
Harry and Meghan are here to promote the Games coming to BC in 2025, the first in Canada since Toronto hosted in 2017, and the first to involve winter pursuits like skiing, skeleton, and wheelchair curling.
Meghan and Harry bring a certain celebrity to this. I'd want to say that these games wouldn't exist and they wouldn't be as successful as they are.
But this smiling appearance comes days after the prince rushed back to London from California to visit his father, following the king's cancer diagnosis. And the couple is now facing new scrutiny this week after their launch of a new website and Meghan landing a podcast deal. Up here on the mountain today, those issues are taking a back seat to learning and rediscovering what's been lost.
I'm feeling that I'm like in another world, and right now I'm feeling that I'm flying.
Harry and Meghan are back at Whistler Blackcomb tomorrow before an Invictus event Friday in Vancouver at a curling rink. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Whistler, BC.
And that's a snapshot of this Wednesday. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Happy Valentine's Day, and see you tomorrow.